Yo, welcome back, baby. We here. We live. Well, not live, recorded, but could be live one day. You never know. We here. We can be heroes is here, baby. It's your boy, John Torado, one of your neighborhood hosts, of course. And of course, we have my little brother, my little mini me, Matt Torado. What's up, bro?
What's going on? How's
What's
everyone
up?
doing? How are
Hey,
you doing?
man. I'm doing good, bro. I'm doing good. Another episode of Falcon Winter Soldier, which we're gonna get right into, and I'm excited for it. So, look, I'm just saying, and I think you've made the same similar point at least. So far, Falcon's kind of like over WandaVision. I think a lot of people are liking the content and a lot of stuff that they have coming out for us. So, initial reactions to the episode, bro. So we're obviously right now in episode. This was episode 3
Yep,
of
3 of
Falcon Winter
6.
Soldier. Of the 6, correct? What was your first impressions?
Yeah, I mean, nothing spectacular, truthfully. As much as I want to, praise the episode, I found nothing particularly compelling overall. I thought the reappearance of Zemo was arguably the best aspect, as well as his sort of interesting interactions with Sam and Bucky. So, overall, other than the ending, which definitely took me by a bit of a shock, needless to say, which we'll discuss later.
Right.
I have nothing further comment, but though I will say this is arguably the weakest episode, and of course I'll clarify my thoughts once we, get the discussion rolling along. But how about
Mhm.
yourself? Do you rate it as highly as the other episodes?
Uh,
Can you remember
I
my
think it
thoughts?
was a little forced. I think kind of as far as the Zemo thing, it seems a little too. Although I liked the scene of Sam explaining how he would help Zemo escape, but it was actually how he told Zemo to escape. Zemo was escaping as he was telling the story,
Right.
which in a way, which is kind of cool. Um, you know, definitely the weaker of the two of the three so far. Um, I I almost feel like it was like the the before the midpoint of a movie. You know what I mean? Where they're still kind of trying to
Yeah.
build up upon what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that too. It almost felt like a then and then and then and then. So it felt like a
Right,
series of events
right,
that led to what was supposed to be the premise of an entire episode. If that makes sense. So I mean, there's
right,
nothing wrong with the type of storytelling. I think most of these Marvel series are going to suffer from that. Like, not every episode is going to reach the same standards as a previous one. It's
right,
it's near impossible. I don't think you can really have that level of consistency.
right.
Um, the only consistency you really have is obviously from a visuals perspective. I mean, Marvel's pouring what, like hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars into these projects to make them look as good as they do. So
Well,
yeah,
it's interesting too because I think it was either Feige, I know Mackie might have said it as well, Anthony Mackie. Um, look at these as for example, like Falcon Winter Soldier, a 6 hour movie, right?
right,
In a 6 hour movie, you're not going to get nonstop glamorous content. There's going to be some convos about the plot. There's going to be some character development. There's going to be, maybe this is the midpoint of that movie, just before that midpoint, right? And
yeah, absolutely,
that's kind of where I see it. We're so used to all of these being movies that I think a lot of people are spoiled in that sense, and that the movies come quick. They're 2 hours, 2.5 hours. You get your intro to the character, your basic plot, and what's going to happen after. So the series I think are developing. As far as I know, I think they're already talking about a season 2 for this. So you know at the same time they can't bring out too much, right? Like they still have to kind of pace themselves.
right.
And I did like, just off face value, uh, we got a little bit of like non superheroism, right? I mean, we always get the Winter Soldiers, super soldier strength and whatnot, but no
Right.
Falcon. Essentially, no Falcon the whole time. Just Sam Wilson. Obviously, he didn't have a suit or anything. Uh, I thought that was cool. You know what I mean? It was just kind of, again, last episode we talked about how they're starting to show more of a grounded background of the characters, and kind of build on characters we never thought we'd even want to see their backgrounds, or their struggles and things like that. A lot of the things that we focused on, the main guys like Cap and Iron Man, um, you know Bucky and Sam weren't the centerpiece of a story yet. they are now. And I think they're going about it the right way. Where this was a little bit of a dry episode, I think that's intended. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just want to get in something real quick, and so this Global Repatriation Council, right? It's this council that whoever was blipped back, we're going to take care of you. You're going to get a life going again. And obviously at this point we see them as like the anti uh, terrorist, the opposed to, I can't remember the name of the group. Oh my god,
The Flag Smashers.
the Flag Smashers, correct. So obviously, we talked about this last episode too. Flag Smashers are essentially a group of people that loved life during the blip, the 5 years in between, where people disappeared. Um, Flag Smashers, obviously being, they want no borders, they want no countries, they want everybody is one open world and we're all together type of scenario, right? Hide, smashing flags, like getting rid of flags, getting rid of countries, right? So with the GRC, it seems like they're the opposite. They want to get back to what it was. They want to help people get back to what it was. And that's it's kind of interesting to see that John Walker is associated with that too. So do you think in some way this is another like Hydra-esque group? I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Oh, um, I mean, would they play the Hydra card again? Is the question. I certainly hope not. At this point, anything is possibility. I mentioned the same with WandaVision. Um, but I think ultimately, look, I think the GRC is nothing more than just a standard government organization. I think the Flag Smashers, sort of slowly learning about their perspective and how they have these kinds of kind of grievances with the way in which they're approaching human life. The people who had to survive throughout the 5 year period, possibly without family, without many resources. I mean, I would assume one of the biggest misfortunes of the MCU right now is that they never really explored the consequences of the 5 years gap, the immediate consequences.
Right.
We were given small hints, starting the second act of Endgame after Thor slices his head straight off.
Right.
So what I do enjoy is that they're at least trying to explore those kinds of aspects and at least forcing us to look from a different kind of perspective, even though we know that the Flag Smashers, their methods are a bit unorthodox and a bit terrorist esque, as seen with the way Carly Morgenthau destroyed an entire building with hostages.
Right.
This is send a simple message.
Right.
Um,
It's like
so
maybe they have a means to an end, but it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do, right?
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it,
And it's crazy.
yeah. I
I
mean,
like to say.
definitely seeing them as the enemy at this point. I think for me, they're definitely not a good group of people. Totality speaking, I mean, they may have good intent in that not wanting wars again, but at the same time, they're causing in some way a war themselves, right? I mean, so
Right,
it kind of
exactly.
contradicts the whole scenario. And what are you supposed to do? Like re-blip everyone? I mean, it's just never going to happen. So um, I did want to go. So I guess we talked about a little bit, but the scene with Zemo in prison, I thought the intro to Zemo was awesome. With Bucky going in there and him trying to say the Hydra words to turn him into the soldier again. Like maybe he already at this point knew that they wouldn't work. There actually is also no confirmation as to whether he blipped. I I
True.
think I think Zemo didn't blip, by the way, because if he did blip, he wouldn't be in prison still.
Yeah,
Blipped and then
and
came back. I think he was in prison for
sure.
5 years.
Oh, absolutely. I think ultimately, perhaps somehow, in some ways, they perform. He maybe established some kind of connection outside of prison. Because
Right,
you had to take into account, sort of a bit later in the episode when technically Bucky breaks Zemo out of prison so they can sort of uncover a bit of information on how the super soldier serum is working. You see Zemo heading toward his private plane, and explaining to Sam and Bucky, my family was pure royalty until you destroyed my country. So,
right,
I mean, realistically speaking, I would assume from a government standpoint, they would freeze his accounts of all the money
right,
that his family earned over the years. So,
right.
he definitely has some kind of connections. Remember, he's a very, intelligent and manipulative villain as seen
Right.
with Civil War. So
I
there
mean,
are elements to
he
his
was
character.
a special agent for Discovery Army too. I think honestly, man, like I don't maybe there's a possibility he wasn't even in prison during. I mean, so I think he did not get blipped. I think we can all say that. Um, but maybe he escaped during the 5 year gap and met maybe even more connections and got to know the people in Mandrapore, which we'll get into in a bit. And then found a way to reconnect to the family and use the money that they have or whatever the case was. His iconic mask. I mean, clearly he was a beast at hunting these people down, whoever he wanted to hunt down. I mean,
Yeah, that's an interesting point to bring up too. Is that it seemed as if Zemo knew exactly where his mask was located, as if he was sort of planning out in his mind in the event that I successfully escape for whatever reason, whether it's through my own means or miraculously Bucky comes in because Sam and him need the assistance.
right.
I have a feeling he sort of had a plan mapped out in his head, sort of what he wants to accomplish. I think ultimately he has. I mean, I don't think he necessarily cared about the super soldier serum, even if it did come into fruition. I think he simply sees it as an opportunity to, get something out of Sam and Bucky. We'll see sort of what his plans are later down
Yeah.
the line.
It's definitely some little like backhanded reasonings for what he's doing. He's definitely going to portray them. That's I mean, we all kind of just know that's going to happen. Remember, I mean, Zemo's goal is just no Avengers. He wants no superheroes. He thinks, and he's not wrong in the sense that putting he mentioned putting people on certain mantles or kind of admiring them or putting them on a pedestal. It causes a lot of issues in the world. It's they have in this case when it was Cap, our Cap, Steve Rogers, it's a threat. You guys have a super soldier on your squad. Like other countries don't like that. They don't like that you have that power, right? And I think that's kind of what he speaks to when he says he doesn't want anybody to have that power. And he didn't care if it was Hydra. He was ready to kill a Hydra agent. He didn't care if it's the Avengers. He was ready to put them against each other, and was ready and willing to do so. So I where again he's almost similar to the Flag Smashers, right? Like he has his own means to an end. He does have a decent point, but he's doing about it the wrong way and doing some terroristic things along the way, right?
Absolutely.
So what'd you think about the escape plan though? Like, wasn't that kind of like a neat little thing? Like Bucky was just made it happen, right? And he, so I just wanted your thoughts on like what, like, is it cool to see Bucky as this guy who can actually plan things like Steve? I mean, so that was a big thing in one of the episodes too. Is uh, Steve was always the one with a plan and knows what he's gonna do next, and blah blah blah. It seemed like Bucky is kind of doing that himself now, right? I
Following
mean,
in his footsteps, yeah, definitely a
yeah,
major development for his character, and sort of the exchange between him and Sam was obviously funny. Because I just love Sam's reaction to saying, "Well, one, like, how would you know? Like, like, how are you that specific? Like, there's, like, he was genuinely concerned for his own safety and for Bucky's safety because if Zemo exits prison, the world will be, the world could possibly be in danger.
right,
Not many people are aware of Zemo's capabilities as a possible antagonist. So to see him sort of take on this almost anti-hero esque role now, in the sense of him wanting to help Sam and Bucky to
right,
destroy the super soldier serum. It's an interesting direction to take the character, I'll admit, but I think ultimately, sort of what I hinted at earlier about this episode being more of a and then is that Zemo had quite a bit of expository dialogue. He would essentially explain everything in quite a bit of detail and sort of lead Sam and Bucky along the path. So I certainly hope he's not a navigator over the course of the series, and that he plays a more integral role. Whether that means him possibly being involved with the Flax Masters in some capacity, or perhaps him having this overarching plan that will come into fruition in a later episode, is what I hope will come of his character, as opposed to him feeling forced, like you said. Because Zemo could really appear at any point in the series,
right.
but at least they did so in a way that it made sense given the circumstances that Sam and Bucky find themselves in. So
Right, right. And I do like that, I mean, Zemo does have an extensive knowledge of Hydra. I mean, the thing is, yes, I speaking to what I asked you before, what you were hoping isn't the case. I don't think we'll ever see Hydra again. I think Hydra is not ever going to be the main villain in any of these series or movies. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. I just think it made sense for Sam. It made sense for Bucky, right? Like Super Soldier Serum was used for the other Winter Soldiers, was used for Bucky himself, hasn't been used by anybody good since Cap. Um, we thought would be used good by the US government, but obviously they used it to just basically torture Isaiah. um, so, I hope the Hydra thing is just they vet it. They use email to find out that it's not actually Hydra, and there's this whole other villain with Power Broker, Flag Smashers, somebody else running the group that's gonna kind of make that happen. And as far as we know, I think they mentioned, and we're gonna talk about that scene a little bit too. But what there's like 20 super soldiers out there that were given serums, or 20 people,
yep,
probably 19 now. I think one just died.
absolutely.
Um,
And I'm kind of happy you brought up this point, so we can kind of skip ahead to the scene in which sort of Bucky is having that, or I don't want to say having a conversation. He's interrogating the doctor, as you recall,
right,
and he's sort of giving like various information as to what has been distributed, and obviously Carly, as well as her fellow comrades, injecting themselves with the super soldier serum back in Madripoor, Madripoor,
Madripoor, yeah,
Madripoor, yeah,
Mandripoor,
Madripoor.
Mandripoor.
Um, So that was really interesting to see. I mean, I would assume there's a certain sense of almost trauma for Bucky. I mean, the fact that this serum is being released out into the world again, the least he wants is there to be another Winter Soldier situation
Right.
where you have someone causing endless amounts of pain and harm towards seemingly innocent people or individuals who are simply being targeted by Hydra or another organization because, perhaps they have information about them that can be leaked to the public or whatever sort of, the reason may stand for. So it's, it's interesting to see Bucky take on this leadership role and almost take ownership for, what's happening. And as I mentioned before, it's a major step up for his character because prior to this, I didn't necessarily see him, um, as well, not only as the main face of the MCU, but I never necessarily saw him as someone who could be compelling because I didn't necessarily think Marvel was interested in telling a story with the Winter Soldier or with Bucky.
Right.
Now we have that opportunity, and to see him, working alongside Sam is working for the best
Well,
so
we're
far.
almost seeing like a little bit of a cat and mouse game between Sam and Bucky in the sense of who's going to finally take the mantle, right? It's not intended by either of them, but they're both being developed in a sense that they're both getting to be maybe capped one day, right? Like it seems like they're both indirectly racing each other for the mantle. We see Sam having his own thing, doing well with his missions. We see Bucky suddenly starting to try to be a leader and step up. Um, you know, I hope Sam wins this theoretical race for the mantle. I want to see Sam Wilson as Cap,
I do as well.
as
Yeah.
an idolized, African American that's gonna, kind of take that role on and make it happen. Um, as far as Mandripore though, so I did a little bit of research before we hopped on for the pod, but it has a really, really, really. This isn't theories because I know we promised no theories, but it does have a big connection to the X Men as
Mm-hmm.
far as always being involved in the X Men universe, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I they're just throwing hints at us at this point and just trying to mess with us. I get it, but I mean, come on, like at some point, one of these things have to make sense for the X Men to actually be around. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think the worst they could do is have like Hugh Jackman cameo, same hairstyle as Wolverine, and kind of find out his name is Mike Oxmall or something.
Oh my
You know,
god, I
like,
know. Jesus, imagine. You see that?
um, yeah, they're tossing hints. I mean, Kevin Feige even said that it was a location that they were unable to use prior to the acquisition, the Disney acquisition with Fox. So we'll see. I mean, will it play a significant role in the future? It's a possibility. I think Marvel sort of has their plan mapped out as to what they want to accomplish, what kinds of
Right.
stories they want to tell, what kind of characters they want to bring into the MCU, both for diversity and for the sake of making sure that all these characters who are being introduced are given a strong foundation, so audiences are familiarized with them, and then when we see them appear in other projects such as let it be Young Avengers or it's a standard Avengers film where you have all these heroes working together. And I think Marvel's doing really great job so far. Better than Warner Bros. Because Marvel actually has a plan, and they know what the fans want, and
Right.
no doubt about it. I mean, Kevin Feige is a fantastic producer. I mean, he's been working with Marvel since the original Iron Man, or actually, I think prior to that too, he worked on a few Marvel films.
Right.
Um, it's it's amazing. So we'll see. They keep tossing these X-Men hints, and it's making me
They're not,
twitch.
they're not doing it for no reason, man. They have a plan. They know what they're doing. I'm just gonna keep believing in them, like you said, letting Feige run this thing, take the helm, make it happen. So Sharon Carter,
Yeah, I'm
Sharon
glad you mentioned
Carter.
her.
I mean, what's up? Like, okay, so she didn't get blipped. She did not get blipped.
Yeah,
She has been living in Madripoor for what seems like the entire since Civil War,
yeah.
um, or at least on the run since Civil War.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm a little disappointed that Cap never tried to clear her name when he took over the Avengers again. um, I'd like some explanation as to why that wasn't the case. Because he helped her. You figured once he's back as an Avenger during the blip era, he would help, but didn't. Um, Talk about a badass. She's a badass. Like
Yeah,
she was, they're over there talking to the scientists. We talk about that a little more too, but she was whooping their ass.
yeah.
I
The
mean,
assassins said, yeah,
yeah,
in the
I was
shipping
like,
yard.
okay, Sharon, okay.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was nice to see her. I think
Yeah,
she had, obviously we see the scene that she walks up to the vehicle, looks like one of her associates are in the vehicle, and she says, "We have a problem." Um, I think she's directly involved with this in some way. Um, do we have an evil Sharon now? I mean, is she part
hey,
of the Flag Smashers? Does she believe in the post blip and that life? I mean, what do you think? What's kind of the intention here with Sharon?
it's funny because I was watching the episode with Angel, our older brother, and like he asked me a very similar question. He's saying, "So, do you think Sharon's evil? Do you think she's going to be involved with the Flag Smashers, or like the very similar question to you?" And I said, honestly, I don't care about a character, but it's nice to have a connection to the previous Marvel movies. No
Yeah,
disrespect to the actors,
right.
and no disrespect to the screenwriters. I wish I can give you an answer. It's a very good question. I honestly do not. I don't care enough about her. And
Right.
every time I look at her, I feel so weirded out because Steve Rogers kissed her, the niece of Peggy Carter, when he still had those kinds of feelings hundreds, like not
I
hundreds,
mean,
but years
he
later.
even married Peggy too, so that's actually super weird.
Right. So I look at her because I think if I look at her in Winter Soldier, fine. Character who happens to have that connection with Peggy, very interesting. And then I see her now, after being this post Civil War, and I literally can't shake that off my mind. I
It's
feel
like wrong.
disturbed, So I guess to seriously answer your question, we'll see. Um, yeah, that's that's all I have. I'm sorry,
Yeah, I
but
mean, I liked her fight scenes. They gave her a little bit of that. They're not going
yeah,
to give much character development. We're not. I mean, sadly, is I guess an opinion based, right? Sadly, I would have liked to see a little more. I think they're going to start giving, like you said. I think the goal is to give us as much as Pope Lip as they can. But there's only so much they can do within all these series and movies. I think she's going to play a part of the Flag Smashers. I think she's definitely r- working with them in some way.
oh
Um,
yeah, it's a
and
possibility.
as far as the so I know when it comes down to the scientists, so Nagel, Dr. Nagel, right? What's his name? Nagel,
Yep,
I think.
that's correct.
Um, Nagel, he. So let's give a breakdown of the timeline. So when he said he was working with Hydra to create the super soldier serum to create more super soldiers for Hydra, right?
Yep.
He then, when Hydra fell, was told, he didn't say this specifically, but essentially told prison or work for the CIA. He chose the CIA. He then began trying to make super soldier for the CIA. In the middle of his development, literally in the middle of his scientific developments for the serum, blipped. Comes back, no CIA looking for him, but the power broker gets a hold of him. Now, now I think you can agree, disagree. I think the power broker and the flag smashers are two totally separate people, right? I think the power broker gives the
Yes.
flag smasher the powers because of some deal or some expectations or something that Carly was told to do, right?
Yeah, I
Or
was
that group. But
yeah, I was kind of under the impression that the Power Broker is almost the antagonist to the Flag Smashers. Am I correct to think so? Because I originally
they
thought
seem kind of
they heavily,
scared,
yeah, because didn't they heavily imply that Carly, as well as a few of them, um, distribute or not distributed, but acquired the Super Soldier Serum without permission from the Power Broker? I think the
right?
Power Broker is a separate entity who's not even aligned with the Flag Smashers. I think honestly, Sam, Sam and Bucky, the Flag Smashers, as well as Zemo, they all have this common enemy, which is the Power Broker. I think all of
It
them are
seems
going to
like
be facing off against each other at some point, as opposed to focusing. I think that's the case. I could be wrong, but I could have sworn they almost fear him. So I thought he or she, the Power Broker, is more on the level of a villain as opposed to working alongside the Flag Smashers. Unless they explicitly said they gave the Flag Smashers a Super Soldier Stream, then I could be entirely wrong. But I don't remember them specifying that in the episode at least. So
right, right. So I
I
mean,
could,
it does seem like the main antagonist is the power broker. I don't know if this power broker has powers himself, his or herself. Excuse me, his or herself. Um, I think we're gonna find that out. But how about, you know what I've been kind of thinking. Um, as far as we were talking about Zemo and what his really intended purposes in the series, right?
yeah.
He's kind of like Loki to me, like Loki throughout the MCU, right? He's the anti-hero ish,
Mm-hmm.
funny guy sometimes,
Yeah.
always willing to kill someone. Obviously, he kills Dr. Nagel. Um, and, and I don't know if I'm okay with that. Like, I feel like kind of speaking to what you had said,
Mm-hmm.
it's like Zemo had
Mm-hmm.
a better purpose. A normal man, mind you. Okay, this is a guy that has no powers. To the point of Civil War, we had no idea he even had connections or was rich or any of that stuff, right? A normal guy destroyed the Avengers. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's what made Zemo so great. And where I see that, it's still going to be the same, right? He's not doesn't have powers. Where he has the money now and all this stuff, he's not really depending on it. He still uses his normal skills, it seems, and whatnot, or his connections. Um, I don't like that they're kind of turning him into like the running joke, right?
They're turning him into a super rich Loki,
Yeah.
and I'm not a huge fan. I think like they're that
For a couple reasons.
yeah.
It's like Loki was so unique in that sense, right? Like that was Loki's purpose in the MCU, and that was cool.
Yeah,
Maybe,
absolutely.
and Loki will
From the
still
very
be that
beginning.
as the main character in his own series. I think a little bit at least, right? Also, it doesn't match the tone of the series. This is more grounded. This is more uh, action packed. This is more, uh, you know, at home to the Cap story, right? It doesn't like that Loki stuff wasn't didn't really exist in any of the Cap movies. Who was the running joke in any of the Cap movies? Was there anybody
I,
like truly?
no,
Like, was there a
yeah.
Loki? Was there a Loki though? You know what I mean? Was there someone that was intended to be that? No. So it
Mhm.
kind of like discredits the tone of all the Cap movies we've had so far, Cap content, if you want to call it. So I don't really know. I mean, you think that's just this episode because they're just bringing him back in? They want to get people to familiarize with him again, or do you think that's going to be the long term thing with the rest of the
I
series?
hope so because they can definitely take him into a very generic territory. Like I, but I think he is still far better written he's only been present in one episode, and he is significantly better written than Agatha Harkness. Agatha Harkness, uh, oh, I'm sorry, is one of the worst villains in the entire MCU, and there's one reason why. The amount of exposition she uttered in the last two episodes is more exposition than I have ever heard in a 2 hour Marvel movie. It was ridiculous. Like, we
So
never knew her purpose. At least for Zemo, we're fully, most fans, assuming they've watched Civil War, are aware of his backstory, his connection to the Avengers, and my hope is that this episode is just meant to familiarize ourselves with the character again. And as he sort of adjusts to, for us, it's almost like we're adjusting to this new world. He's sort of adjusting to the new circumstances too. So I really really hope they at least try to find some sense of groundedness with the character and really hone in on the idea that he's just a normal person. I don't really like the fact that he's potentially rich. I think that does a disservice to the character, because I almost depicted it as sort of this a standard family man, a working class family man who was dealt a major tragedy after Sokovia ended up being destroyed by the Avengers, or by
and I
Ultron and
think
Avengers.
that was really what it was. Or maybe we're in a multiverse situation, Matt. Maybe this isn't the Zemo we knew
Okay, yeah, could you imagine?
from Earth 616. I don't know. No,
Yeah.
listen, that'd be a crazy theory.
Oh,
But
oh my god.
I I think I don't know how. See, the thing is, we can't do backgrounds on everyone, so they're gonna have to just throw stuff together, and I think that's kind of what they're doing with the Zemo thing and him being rich. My thing is, you know, maybe there was a story of him, kind of what do you call cutting himself off from the royal family. Maybe he became a soldier and was more of a grounded, family man, normal in a sense, right? For most of his life, but then when the blip happened, after everybody died, this, that, and the third, he just got all the money. Maybe there's some kind of little background to that to explain it, but it was so random. It's like I escaped prison. It was cool. They had their little interaction. I thought, it's gonna be dope, blah blah. And then boom,
Yeah.
hey, here's my private jet. Here's my butler.
Like,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
because
it,
I wouldn't think he. I thought it would
it
just
was
would have
kind of just thrown
been.
together.
Yeah, and I don't like that. And they just flesh that out and said, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of exposition, but I think just a single line sort of explaining, because he just said, my family had royalty, until, well, and it's just like his statement even contradicts, and is a huge contradiction, because he said my family had royalty until the Avengers destroyed Sokovia, is what he heavily implied. He didn't say the Avengers specifically, but we know what he's referring to. So how did he acquire the royalty again? If he's been stuck, and so assuming that after Age of Ultron, right, he was probably on the streets, like planning for months upon months on end to split the Avengers or to have them kill each other, right?
Right,
He had access to some kind of resources. I'm not saying he's not flush with cash. He has enough to he can get from location to location.
right.
But 2016 he was arrested, Civil War. And presumably he's been in jail for however long. Maybe he escaped at one point, like we mentioned previously. But let's assume that he's been in prison the entire time. How did he gain access to his wealth again? Because if he's a criminal and he has those kinds of accounts, the government will freeze, like, will literally freeze his accounts, and they would literally cut off, and like they would probably deplete his accounts. They would cut it off entirely because they do not want him to access those kinds of resources again. Because if he does plan on doing something to them, like destroying the UN building or wanting to purposely, have the Avengers kill one another, I really do not like that aspect, to his character. They can improve it. I never envisioned him as that kind of person.
No,
Because for
no.
me,
I
he
mean,
just seemed like a normal
when we
human
heard
being.
Zemo was coming back, I honestly I thought of this as like not necessarily Civil War to the storyline, but the sequel to Civil War that we saw already, right? I
Yeah,
saw this as like a continuation of a great villain, arguably number two to Thanos in the MCU.
I say number one actually.
I mean,
personally.
I listen. I would never argue against that. I would say, maybe I still have Thanos above it, just for
Yeah, I don't know.
more fun.
Thanos and Zemo,
But
it's kind of
you
like
tell me Zemo,
same level.
I wouldn't honestly.
Yeah,
I want to say one. I think I'm just gonna stop myself because Thanos, killed half the
that,
But
that's fair. He succeeded. Zemo succeeded too. Those are the two villains in the entire MCU who succeeded
never
at their
did.
goal.
They, did everything they wanted to do. Honestly, in the end, Thanos won. I mean, the Thanos that we know destroyed the stones, and they just so happened to go back in time and get another Thanos and kill him.
Yeah,
Like in the end, Thanos technically did win.
yeah.
In the end game.
And he died. And the best part, and sort of the really emphasize our point here, is that Daniels died with the satisfaction, knowing they were in such a depressed state, they were hopeless, and at that point in time, they could do absolutely nothing to reverse the effects of the stones. Zemo, he was going to commit suicide, as you remember, but T'Challa purposely prevented him from doing so.
Right.
But either way, he succeeded. He can rot in prison for the rest of his life. Even if they come back together, he still succeeded.
Right.
That he I think deep down Zemo knows that they will inevitably
I mean, if you think
unite.
about it,
You know?
arguably, Zemo's the reason why Thanos succeeded as well.
Which is why is I was
So
mentioning
that's
that
why
to
you can
Angel
argue
too.
to put him at number one. I mean, if
Exactly.
not for the Avengers breakup, you argue they can probably stop him from getting one of the stones, or maybe,
Yeah.
maybe I don't know.
Who knows?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh
Crazy.
man, I don't know.
So
We might have to do a rankings, a villains ranking and a hero ranking or something.
yeah, for sure.
So
But I think sort of to really encapsulate what we're saying here is, we 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 don't want it to be another Danos situation where they bring in another Danos, that one dimensional Danos who wasn't fleshed out.
right,
And we don't want that to be the same for Zemo. He already has that foundation.
right.
He's such a compelling character. And I just don't want Marvel, because Marvel has a tendency to do this so much. They really do. Is that they have a strong premise, they have the right ideas in mind, but they don't execute it properly. They literally had the foundation. Like, this is it. This is
So
the
what
foundation.
you're telling me is you
Well,
need to combine Snyder with Marvel because Snyder's execution is great. Just his pre-planning is horrible sometimes.
I no, I do the opposite for Snyder. I do
Oh, you
Snyder's
did it
pretty good at pre-planning, but he's terrible at
pre-planning but
executing.
executing. Okay, so everybody's just
Marvel has
bad at
a.
executing.
I really don't think you. I think Snyder has the vision. Like, he knows how to. He can conceptualize scenes. He just
Okay,
can't
okay, I see what you're saying.
put them into.
Physically
You know
on
what
the
I mean?
screen. That was different than what we were even talking about. Yeah,
Exactly.
my
Like,
bad,
he
my
can
bad.
frame a shot. Like, he's a
You're
fantastic
talking about
director.
the for Marvel when it comes to Marvel necessarily they'll have the premise to plan, but don't know how to make that plan happen at all. Not just on screen, but at all. Snyder can't just make it happen on screen half the time.
Yeah, like, it's
Right, right,
like Marvel has the plan. It's just for whatever reason to execute. Like, I'll go. I think that, like, Snyder goes hand in hand. Like, they both have a plan. It's just when they go through with it. I can 100%, with full confidence say this. Whatever they planned originally is not what they show on screen. It's
right,
and I'm not discrediting Marvel for that. That
right,
happens with pretty much every movie.
right.
You go in with the original plan. You go through multiple drafts of the script. Obviously, you need to make changes. Like,
Yeah,
you
of course.
if you don't make any changes, then that's a major concern as a screenwriter, because you need to sort of learn how to adapt. You definitely need to know what's right and what's wrong, what should be kept in the series, what should be removed, and all that. So, I think the show has been. I know I kind of it's been saying this. I was saying a lot of negative about the episode, but I will say, you know, there was one sort of good aspect.
What's that?
The Wakandan woman. Sorry.
First things first on that is I want to say rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. Okay. I think Marvel absolutely would have put him in that exact position. I think he would have popped up instead of this Wakandan character. Um, you do remember, I mean, he killed his father, right? In the MCU story, man, I think you muted. Uh, he killed, um, obviously Zemo killed Chitaka. So I'm a little sad, seeing at the end of what we thought would, technically be a post credits, but seeing the Wakandan soldier spy, I think they call them spies, uh, there, and had the little trinkets that track Zemo. It seems I I'm sad. I'm sad. I think Chadwick was supposed to be in that spot, and in the end, he's a Wakandan enemy, so I get it. You still gotta, no matter what, they gotta bring Wakanda to be at some point, right? Black Panther 2's coming out no matter what.
Hmm.
The Wakanda's a very large part of the world now, ever since Black Panther 1, obviously. Uh, and they can't avoid Wakanda, right? So, Zemo being the main villain that brought essentially Black Panther to the big screen for us, you got to have Wakanda involved at some point. So
Yeah.
it's just interesting
Um.
that Bucky knew right away, right? He's
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
he's the White Wolf, man. Like he just knew. He just like he probably even understood her language, Wakandan. I think he speaks it.
Yeah.
So
And so I don't think King T'Challa or Attack on Boseman was intended to appear, and here's why. If one of this is in this particular show is any indicator of what we should expect from future series, I don't think major characters are going to be in these kinds of shows. They want it to be as self-contained as possible. And I think what they want to do is similar to like Sharon Carter, for instance. Sharon Carter, I think people know Sharon Carter, but is she like, recognizable to the likes of Iron Man and Captain America? Absolutely not, right? I mean, those are iconic characters within the greater context of the MCU.
right,
So I think what they want to do is for bringing like the same Wakanda shoulder that we saw. I think we saw her on multiple occasions. I think we saw her. The original Black Panther, obviously,
yep,
was when she was introduced. I'm unfamiliar with the actress name, unfortunately, but she does quite a good job. She
right.
had like a few lines of dialogue in the original. I think she was in the Infinity War maybe for like a
She was
senior.
in Civil War. She's the one that went up to Scarlett Johansson, or to Black Widow.
Yeah, you're right about that. I completely
She was
forgot
she
because I
he was
remember
like, "Oh, I
Scarlett was
love this. Well, I love to see that fight. I gotta go." Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And then I don't remember seeing her in Endgame, but we'll soon three project at the minimum. I
right,
could be wrong.
right, right,
It was definitely nice to see that kind of connection, right? Because like you mentioned, I think it was either the last episode or the previous episode before that. Um, Wakanda was a safe haven. Almost a happy place for Bucky. So,
right.
unless you want to comment further, what your thoughts are about the
Yeah,
Wakanda implications
I
here.
mean, I love the fact that they're always gonna be around as like his kind of like his piece. You know what I mean? I think I don't want. I would like them to have a decent part in what goes on for what's going to happen in the series going forward. I just I find it hard to just completely not involve T'Challa. You know what I mean? I just maybe it's just a minor part they help them out with in the next episode. Help them get to point A to point B, or find a location, or find someone, or whatever the case is. I think there's a way they're going to go about it to not have to really involve T'Challa. It just makes me sad. I think it just, in a way, on top of that, it's odd, right? Like T'Chaka was was that was T'Challa's father. Why would he not be angry that Zemo's out? Why would he not go to Bucky himself and say, "What the hell are you doing? Like, this is the guy that killed my dad. He's supposed to be in prison. Why are you using him? Why are you helping him?" Um, so we'll see how it goes. I think maybe they reference him at least. I mean, I think at this point there's no confirmation as to whether T'Challa has died in uh, the MCU. I think they're gonna go a different way about it. I don't know how. I have no idea what the plan is for Black Panther 2, so I can't really tell you, or the MCU as a whole when it comes to Black Panther.
Yeah,
I know they're not recasting T'Challa though. Like that's been
very good.
confirmed.
Yeah, Chadwick Wilson. Oh,
It's
such a
just,
tragic loss, man.
man, one of the
So tragic.
most versatile actors I've ever watched. I mean,
Yeah,
so much of his work is just great.
unbelievably talented.
But yeah, it's sad,
Yeah.
but I'm excited. I think the Wakanda connection is awesome. I think they're gonna find a way to make it make sense. I want to see more, a little more of that, the Zemo we grew to love in Civil War. Um, he he had a real purpose. he completed his purpose, and maybe because he completed his purpose, they feel the need to bring him in as someone else in a sense, personality wise.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't see the need for that. I don't see the need for that. He's still like he should still be upset, pissed off. The Avengers effectively killed his family in his eyes, right? You know, he almost killed himself if not for T'Challa. Uh, you know, I don't. I need to see more out of him. I need to see what we saw in Civil War. And don't limit him. I feel like we're at this point they're limiting the actor, right? They're not letting him really do what he's been used to doing in the canon so far. So open him up. Let's see the real Zemo, and maybe we will. Maybe right now maybe this whole thing is a charade by him. Maybe he's literally doing this on purpose. Uh, and the Zemo we know is going to pop up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hope so.
So
I hope so.
it
I
could
certainly
be
hope
it
so.
could be all part of the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm definitely excited. I think this is it's going to get exciting, and it's going to I think the next three episodes are going to be in for a bang, and I think it's going to be exciting. We
Yeah.
got 4, 5, and 6, right, and then we get the making of would be 7,
Yep, that's correct.
and then I think there's a little bit of a break to Loki. They delayed it, so
Yeah, so June.
um,
Bryce said is that we'll be covering Bad Batch. I know that's been confirmed for May the 4th,
ooh,
78 or 78, 70-minute premiere, and then another episode that same week on Friday. And then
oh
it will
wow,
be releases after
how
that point.
many episodes is the plan for Bad Batch?
I will anticipate the same amount to Clone Wars season 7 possibly. So how many was there? Around 12, I
12 to
think.
14,
So
something like
maybe
that.
12, yeah. 12 to 14.
Okay,
I probably extended to 16
and those are
maybe.
going to be Friday releases too.
Yep, that's correct. But this time around they're doing May the 4th for the
Oh yeah,
70-minute
right,
premiere.
right,
And
right.
then then that same week will be a Friday. And then afterwards, every Friday
They're doing a lot of Friday content. It
from
seems they should start to
yeah.
mix the days
Oh
up.
yeah, absolutely. So I think that should hold us out. It might sort of you know, sort of I can't think of the word.
Correlate.
Yeah, it's like correlate with Loki, depending on how many episodes there are. But we'll cover both. That's what
Right.
we do on We Can Be Heroes podcast, baby.
That's all
Uh,
we do, my man. That's all we do. Hey, so I think one last quick question for you. One last quick question for you. Let's do a prediction. All right, we'll do a little bit of prediction here. What do you think happens with Sam, or I'm sorry, Walker? So Walker Cap, the new Cap,
yep, John Walker.
Battlestar, Bucky, Sam, Zemo. Go one by
As
one.
in when they finally
What do
interact with
you
each
think
other.
happens? No, prediction wise, is the end of the series what's their standings in the canon going forward?
Oh, sure. I have a feeling the Battlestar will end up dying at some point. Because in the comics, John Walker, psychology goes nuts. He definitely turns rather crazy. So I'll
And you
anticipate him.
mentioned that. Not to interrupt you real quick. We
Yeah.
got a scene with him getting really pissed off with one of the witnesses essentially. Was it
Oh, of
witness or
the oh my goodness, sort of the workshop owner, if I'm not mistaken,
right,
where
right,
they
right,
the
right,
Black Stripes are hiding out. Yep, you're absolutely
right,
correct.
right.
Yeah.
Um, he had a the angles and the cameras and the effects. Did it not seem like a little bit of delirium he was going through?
So
A
like
little bit
frustration.
his frustration, like he just kind of like had to shake himself
Yeah,
out of it for a
they
second.
could, yeah, they could absolutely be foreshadowing his possible
Oh, it's
psychological
coming.
transformation.
U.S.
Um,
agents coming.
but as it stands, I really like him as a character.
I
Hope we
do.
see him again.
Yeah,
In
I
episode four,
think
five, and
I
six.
actually like him as a good character. He's not. I mean,
He's not necessarily bad.
he's not bad.
I wouldn't say that.
I
Even if
think
he
he's
made,
yeah.
he made that
I think
threatening
he'll be
message.
bad based on what you said. Like with if Battlestar
Yeah,
dies and other issues, maybe then he starts to turn into psychotic self.
yeah. I mean, he made a threatening message the same in Bucky. It was out of simple frustration.
Right, right, right.
We'll see if he actually acts on those words. But at the same time, he simply wanted to establish not necessarily a friendship per se. He understands that the job does not entail you know having someone like you,
Right.
but working together is far easier than being separated, at least from his perspective. Um, so who knows? For all we know, John Walker could be a good guy the entire time, deciding to help Sam and Bucky.
Right.
So we shall see if they have any further plans for John Walker moving forward.
Right.
But if they do want to pursue anything significant with the character, it would probably be at the final episode. And if they decide once again to do a season two, John Walker will more than likely be the main antagonist of that particular season.
Right.
Um, but anyway, sort of to go back, sort of what I predict is going to happen. I do not think Sam is getting the shield until episode 6. I think the scenes
Mm,
that we see in the trailer with him sort of bouncing around the shield, presumably at his home,
right.
I think is honestly going to be the final episode. Sort of when like Sam and Bucky finally admits to themselves, like, yeah, we're partners. We're not necessarily friends.
Right.
We just so happen to have a mutual friend, Steve
Right.
Rogers.
Right.
But they definitely will develop a deeper respect for each other moving forward. Bucky will begin to accept who he is as a person, and at the very least, try to forgive himself for all the evil he may have done all those years ago. Sam will finally become the new Captain America. And then Zemo is left up to interpretation. For all we know, that can be sort of a cliffhanger. We come to find out that Zemo does in fact turn against Sam and Bucky, which is more than likely a possibility.
Right.
So we'll see. Post credit scene could be something related to Thunderbolts. If Zemo
Mm.
is arrested, or maybe Zemo happens to come in contact with General Ross. He's like, I need to talk to you about an organization, Thunderbolts.
Mm.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
What are your
Okay.
thoughts? What are your
I honestly think I'm leaning towards I don't want to say it, but prediction wise, uh one part I don't want to say. But anyway, so I think Walker's gonna end up being, like you said, more the antagonist at some point, whether it's now or in the future. He's gonna turn into a US agent for sure. Sam will be Cap. I think Bucky dies. I think Bucky dies. That's a prediction of mine. I may be
ooh
wrong. Um, I have this feeling
bold one?
that he's going. Maybe not now. Maybe it is season two, but
Mm-hmm.
he feels like it's going to be a more of a sacrifice scenario, right? Where he wants to make amends finally in his book. He feels like the one way he can do it is to save a life, by risking his own.
If
So
anything, this be like a lethal weapon situation, like
yeah,
Lethal Weapon 2, where like
right,
what was
right,
it?
right.
Diggs like he was shot like multiple times. I think it might be
Right.
similar to that, like when
Right.
Bucky
Something
pretends to
like,
be
yeah, or
dead.
maybe he doesn't
You
even
know?
die or doesn't actually die,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
who knows? But
At the very least, do a
either
fake
way,
out
I
death.
think I think Bucky's gonna try to make his amends. So whether it's that or not is one thing.
Yeah.
My big prediction for Zemo was actually what you mentioned. I think he's gonna be one of the main Thunderbolts characters for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna get a character or two out of Black Widow in May for Thunderbolts.
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
Zemo's gonna be recruited as well.
Yelena
Um,
will be one No, will you think Yelena from Black Widow will be a
it's
Thunderbolt? Because
possible.
she's apparently in
I
in
have a weird
Hawkeye.
I have a weird feeling that Black Widow's not really dead. This is me, but whatever. Um
Yeah,
I just
she's
had
gonna
this
snap
feeling.
back.
I have this feeling that she's
Okay.
not dead. I just have
I
this
think she
feeling, man.
is, and they're just using it as a platform to set up future movies.
I know. I just have a
Unfortunately,
feeling. I just have a feeling. This is me.
hey,
But
here at Marvel.
yeah, I think Zemo will be Thunderbolts for sure. And Sam's gonna take that mantle, and then obviously we'll get Torres. We talked about last episode. Torres will be end up being Falcon, so I'm excited. I think this thing is gonna be dope, and 4, 5, 6 are gonna be better, and I think they're gonna do Zemo the right way, and we're gonna see the things that we want to see. So
Yeah,
we are running out a little bit of time here, so again, I wanted to thank everyone for hopping on in. Matt, of course, for joining me as always, because we love to do this thing and
of
we'll keep
course,
doing it as much as we can. Got some Star Wars stuff coming up with Bad Batch. I'm excited for that as well.
absolutely.
Matt, where can I find you?
As always, Matt underscore T29 over on Instagram. Thank you for the support. Definitely consider giving us a subscribe, giving us a like on the video, or just taking maybe a few minutes out of your day just to watch the podcast. Trust me, these are over like an hour long, so we don't expect you to watch it in detail. But any kind of support helps us out. But in the meantime, we still appreciate the support you've been giving us as we started over a month ago. Crazily enough, it's been going by that fast. So we sincerely appreciate it. I enjoy doing this with my brother as much as he does with me. Pause. So we'll we'll keep doing it. We'll keep giving you guys some content that you'll enjoy, hopefully. And yeah, thanks as always.
And of course, you can find me over at any of the social medias, John underscore OTS. That's Instagram, Twitter, and then on Facebook, you'll find me as Jonathan Torado. I'll be on the Facebook page for On the Sidelines, running that page over there. We'll be on a Facebook group for On the Sidelines. Join, talk. I mean, we talk about everything you can think of, as always, sports, media, entertainment, everything you can think of. Hop on in. Definitely, please watch us on YouTube, youtube.com/OTS guys. We have another fans episode coming, live music episode where two guys battle each other out representing an artist. And that's coming soon as well. So again, youtube.com/OTS guys. Subscribe, check out our videos as much as you can. Watch it in 10-minute increments. Watch it for 30 seconds. I don't care. A view counts. So hop in there and watch it. But hey, we can be heroes, baby. We here every week doing our thing. We appreciate you. We love you. Thank you.
Peace, guys. Thank you so much.